When I was a kid, I lived in a house with my cousins. I've had a variety of experiences there, and I know they were real because my family had similar experiences. My first encounter was while I was watching TV in my room. Suddenly, the dresser in the hallway began making loud banging noises. It was wooden and had large metal hoops to open the drawers. The sound was made by the hoops slamming against the wood. I could see them moving from where I was laying. Every time I would get up to look at it closer, the banging would stop. After a while of this, it just stopped on its own. I continued watching TV. It could not have been my sibling or a cousin messing around because everyone was gone. I was home alone. The second thing I can remember was constantly hearing voices. They would always sound like my mother, calling out my name or my sibling's name. Of course, it always happened when I was home alone. Once, I went downstairs thinking my parents had come home, but no one was there. The only thing out of place was a teacup sitting on the table in the living room. Thinking about this teacup makes me think about something else that happened often, almost every night. I would hear two teacups tinking together. I could tell it was teacups because it made a specific, higher-pitched sound than other cups. I would go downstairs after hearing it, but nothing looked different. This next experience occurred a few months after my grandfather's passing. Sometimes I would sleep in his room as we were very close, and it was comforting. One night, while I was drifting off, the cabinets in the room that would hold his medication began violently slamming and banging. I saw a figure in the hallway, hunched over and convulsing. This image is literally burned into my memory from how horrific it was. The next morning, I asked my parents about it. They said they heard the cabinets, but did not see anything in the hallway. As a kid living in a small town in Mexico, I grew up with solid values based on religion and believing in God and evil. At the age of 5, I got into many paranormal encounters that left me with a traumatic experience and phobias, such as a fear of sunset because the night was coming. Now you may think I'm joking, but I also encountered levitations and sleep paralysis. The worst encounter was when a force of energy took me when I was running to my mom's room and it pulled me back into my room. My mom didn't believe me until she saw me terrified in bed in my room, crying desperately. She brought in a priest to pray for me. The priest kind of practiced a type of exorcism. Growing up, the experiences decreased, and I did eventually overcome my traumas. At the age of 15, we immigrated to the United States. Nothing happened for 10 years. One night, I experienced another horrible encounter. I was awake in my bed looking at my phone. I couldn't move. I was paralyzed with wide open eyes, and I started hearing voices, like babies crying. I thought for a second that I was going crazy. And then a voice in a very deep tone laughed and said,
"Do you think that you have escaped from me?"
My Aunt Maria and my Uncle Albert live in a small Midwestern city in the suburbs. They're now in their 70s, but they've lived in the same house since the late 1970s when they got married. The house has a basement that has always creeped me out. It's a normal ranch-style house, I think built in the 1950s, with a big basement because of tornadoes. When you enter, the staircase to the basement is to your left, protected by a simple metal gate. The kitchen is to the right of the entrance, and the living room borders the large staircase's metal railing. The staircase is carpeted and really steep. When my cousins were kids, they probably put in the metal gate for fear of them falling down the stairs, but they're steep, like oddly so. When I was a kid, I'd go over to their house to play video games with my cousins. They had a Nintendo in the basement. There's a den down there with an old TV and some boxes and an old armchair. The basement turns to the right from this area into a wide hallway. In this hallway, there's more junk and a bar that I don't think they've ever used. It has more boxes and random stuff around it. At the end of this hallway, there's a brick wall and some frosted windows that let the daylight faintly shine in. To the right of the bar, there's a smaller hallway where there's a washing machine and a dryer. My Aunt Maria does laundry there. I think this smaller hallway goes on to meet up with another brick wall, above which would be the driveway where you can just barely see through more frosted glass windows at ground level. So that's a physical description of the basement. I'll go over a handful of the strange things I associate with it. When I was a kid and I'd go down into that basement, I would never go farther than the den area. I just refused. It creeped me out. And I would make sure that when I turned the lights off, that I would run up the stairs to get out of there. That's pretty normal behavior for a kid, but having been there as an adult, I've noticed that everyone seems to have that kind of reaction down there. Except maybe my aunt. I don't think Albert goes down there much. Something that's important to note about my Aunt Maria is that she's an incredibly neurotic, nervous person. She keeps her house spotlessly clean, including plastic on the furniture. If something is out of place for her, she'll put it back immediately. That's just the kind of person she is. Except when it comes to the basement. My family moved out of that city when I was about 12, but we'd come back to visit my dad's family there, about once a year. I remember once going back down there after having not been there for a whole year and discovering that the Nintendo cartridges and the TV remote were exactly where I had left them on the floor near the TV. It struck me as really strange that Maria hadn't put them somewhere else or neatly arranged them since I knew that I had moved them. It just seemed so out of character for her. One thing also I should note. My Uncle Albert's mother was killed during a robbery gone wrong in the 1990s. They never found her killer. Some of the boxes in the basement are likely her things.